How do you crush your podcast interview? And this is something that I want to talk about. And I just want to go over the basics today. If you've been a guest on a podcast where you should know going forward, or maybe something you've been missing out on. And then conversely, if you've never been on a podcast as a guest, I want to go over the basic tips of what you should know. First off, just to make it simple, you want to have a good quality microphone. I recommend the Blue Yeti. That's basically what I use the majority of the time. I've used Blue Snowball, that's a little bit more affordable. And I've used Audio Technica as well, but personally for me, I enjoy using the Blue Yeti. You want to make sure you have a quality webcam microphone. If the quality from your computer isn't that good, I'd gone on Amazon. And I think I purchased mine for about $30, relatively inexpensive. And you just want to be in a nice, quiet setting when you're doing your podcast interview. You don't want to be in the car. You don't want to be somewhere in your house where there's going to be people moving all around you and there's going to be a ton of background noise. So you just want to make sure you get the mic, you get the webcam, and you get the area that you're in. Make sure that it's quiet for your interview. Outside of that, you could use headphones, you could use ring lights, but we're just talking the basics here. So just standard, really more than anything else, you definitely need just a good quality podcast microphone. Outside of that, now you're hopping on to the interview. How do you crush the interview that you're on? I find that people like the A to B story. So when I'm going on a podcast interview, people will always ask me, "Hey, how did you start podcasting you?" Well, I wasn't born starting a podcast booking agency, nor did I ever expect to be in PR. So I talk all the way about the time back in 2015 where I was running a different company. I had my own podcast and I wanted to just start freelancing out. And then that's how I built the company, then how I built employees, how I picked my specific niche. So that's basically the A to B story where I get from exactly where I had started, which was no company at all, to B to now running this successful podcast booking agency. So people really like to hear those stories. With that said, you don't want to be overly promotional. You don't want to be pushy on it. And what I mean by that is that you don't want to turn it into an infomercial. You just want to tell stories. You want to be helpful. You want to provide content. There's always a place and time when you're doing a podcast interview where someone can learn more about you. Typically, at the end of the podcast interview, the host will say, "Hey, where can our audience get in touch with you if they want to learn more about you?" That's when you plug your information in. You don't want to be plugging everything in throughout the entire interview. Again, it can just come off as a little too salesy, and I think it's off putting to people that are listening to the podcast interview. Like when I'm going on podcast interviews, I know that as I get towards the end of the podcast interview, I'm gonna have a time and place to talk about our company, where to find us. Sometimes I might ask how the process works, but I'm not going to explain that during the interview unless the podcast host brings it up. When I'm on the interview, I'm just trying to provide as much helpful content as I can. I want to go on the interview and I want to tell you exactly how you can get yourself booked on podcasts, the tools and resources that we use, because I know there's people out there that want to just do it themselves. They have a marketing team that can already do it for them. And if they don't, then that's where my company comes in. But I just want to be as helpful as possible for you. And I find that being as helpful as possible, that's going to position you as an expert. And then when people position you as an expert, they're like, "Oh, this guy already gets people booked on podcasts. He's been doing it 7 years. Okay, maybe we should work with him instead of trying to figure it out on your own." And again, you're always going to get the people that want to go out there and get themselves booked without hiring a company like ours. But for the few that don't want to deal with that headache, then it makes sense to come work with us. But I know by being an expert and just sharing all this helpful content, that's how they're going to come to me. And then really the last basic is just having some sort of funnel set up, some sort of lead magnet set up. As an example, like when I go on podcast interviews, you can send people to a landing page. I send them to our website where they can get access to our ebook. And on our ebook, then they're going to be brought into I believe it's like a 5, 6, or 7 day automation funnel where every day I'm providing helpful content, such as how to get yourself booked on podcasts, how to find the right shows to be on, how to take your interviews and share them across social media, just trying to provide as much content as possible, because I know that people could hear me on an interview and then they go to our website, but they're just not ready to book a discovery call with our team yet. They're not 100% sold on what we do. So when that scenario comes up, we're going to have that funnel built out ready for them to use. So I use like Active Campaign with our ebook, and for our ebook, I use it through Opt-in Monster. So when someone downloads the ebook, then they get added to our Active Campaign account, and then they're going to get set on that preset of five. It's either 5, 6, or 7 days of automations going out to them. And you may be thinking to yourself, okay, how do I build out this lead magnet, build out this ebook? What I had done is I went on our website, and I went on Google Analytics, I should say, and I found the top like 10 articles people had reviewed in 2023 as an example. I could say, okay, people are really coming to these articles on our website. So I took those 10 articles and I went on Upwork and I hired someone. I said, hey, can you take these 10 articles and put them into an ebook for me? These are our 10 most powerful articles that people are looking at. And they basically turned it into a nice looking ebook. It flows properly. It looks nice. It looks professionally well done, and it cost me a few $100s, but now I have this really nice high quality ebook out there. It's very nice on the design, but I want to have that so that people look at our company as professional, and then they'll get those email drips over a couple of days. Then there's other email marketing tools you could use. You could retarget Facebook ads and Google ads. We use another one, I don't know, I mentioned before, like Opt-in Monster, where I retarget people that have been on our website once, where they're going to get hit with a different opt-in depending on how many times that they've been on our website. I know if someone's been on our website once, maybe they're not ready to book a discovery call, but if they've been on our website 4 or 5 times, maybe they are ready to book a discovery call. So I'll have a pop-up about just that. So simple things like that, where you have your equipment set up. Now you're on the interview and you're just sharing stories. And then you have that last aspect of it where going on podcasts, that's a part of marketing. It's part of the marketing process, but it doesn't stop there. You want to make sure you have everything set up on the back end where you have that ebook, maybe you have the automation for the email. And this can be set up over the course of a month or two. It really doesn't have to take a large amount of time, especially if you could hire it out. Or if you're like me, where I like to bootstrap a lot of the tasks that I do. So like I did the email automation, but I had someone do the ebook just because I'm not a designer. I didn't know how to design it, but I wanted to make it look professional. And then now I have this automation where I can track people based on the podcast interviews that I've done. So again, just to reiterate, good quality podcast equipment. You want to make sure that you are in a quiet location. You want to make sure that you're sharing stories, and then that you have your marketing systems set in place. And between all of those, that's really what's going to allow you to go out there and crush your interview.